Welcome to our first presentation podcast. This is a working introduction to the Solynth Network, a Strawman reference document prepared for discussion with friends, family, prospective partners, and potential investors. Solynth already exists as a functioning collection of cloud-based applications, publishing workflows, and research practices, along with a set of working technical proofs. What this paper sets out is the next step, placing a controlled, enterprise-capable infrastructure layer beneath that existing work for customers who need on-premises operation, stronger data control, local artificial intelligence processing, or contractual isolation. Everything here is deliberately provisional. Specifications, prices, locations, and legal terms remain subject to formal review. So treat this as a considered starting point rather than a finished engineering manual. The first diagram sets out the central idea. On the left sits the current cloud foundation, the working demonstrations and applications already in use across publishing and media, applications and identity, data and knowledge, and engineering delivery. In the middle is a common Solynth control plane, a single set of standards for identity, policy, release control, monitoring, and support that applies no matter where a system runs. On the right are the three ways a customer can consume it: fully hosted by Solynth, owned and run on the customer's own premises, or a hybrid of the two. The essential message of this figure is that the on-premises program extends the proven cloud foundation. It does not replace it. The next diagram widens the lens to the full ecosystem. It maps the present technical vocabulary of the Solynth network across applications, interfaces, data, artificial intelligence, infrastructure, governance, and the ways the work might eventually be monetized. It is included to communicate breadth, and it carries an important caveat. It shows the reference landscape, the full palette, not a claim that every named component has already been built or contracted. Any individual project draws only on the subset that its own business case actually requires. This third diagram is the most speculative in the document, and it is labeled honestly as such. It sketches a conceptual game development and interactive media ecosystem, a future opportunity map rather than anything that exists today. The point it makes is architectural. The same Solynth foundations, the orchestration, the applications, the data, and the infrastructure could in principle support games and interactive media, particularly for a future United States market. It is on the page to show where the platform could one day reach, not to suggest that it has reached there already. Now to the first real customer. Customer 1 is an undisclosed organization in Bristol, and its identity and detailed requirements are protected by a non-disclosure agreement. It matters because it converts the Solynth cloud proofs into a genuine customer-controlled deployment. The engagement is delivered as a consulting contract. The customer owns and procures its own Dell hardware, while Solynth supplies the architecture, installation, configuration, integration, and knowledge transfer. This diagram shows how that hybrid relationship works in practice. The operations center pushes approved software, policy, and configuration to the customer over an encrypted internet connection and pulls back health, logs, and metrics. Crucially, the customer site keeps running on its own during any interruption to that link. The operations center supports the site. It is not a single point of dependency for it. The reference system itself is delivered in 3 phases, and the next 3 diagrams walk through them. One honest note before they appear. These are the original concept infographics, so the architecture they show is illustrative, and the prices printed inside them are historical estimates that have since been superseded by researched budgets later in the document. Read them for the shape of the design, not for the numbers on the panels. Phase 1 is the starting point, a single production node with 1 GPU, a PostgreSQL database, local artificial intelligence, monitoring, a backup repository, an uninterruptible power supply, and secure remote management. It is enough to stand up a complete working system. Phase 2 introduces resilience. A second node brings high availability, database replication, a witness for quorum, stronger backup, redundant network paths, and controlled failover, so the system can survive the loss of a component without losing service. Phase 3 is the fully loaded design, a 3-node production layout with expanded GPU capacity, a dedicated backup server, a high-speed fabric, tape, disaster recovery testing, and mature observability. This is where the reference architecture reaches full operational maturity. This diagram explains how Solynth grows geographically, and the principle is deliberately restrained. Infrastructure follows demand. It is not installed speculatively. The initial operations center is in the United Kingdom, its final location still to be decided between Glasgow, Edinburgh, or a suitable Fife facility, and it supports the Customer One program and early customers. A Portugal center is planned for continuity and European capability, since the founders are based there. A United States center in Gainesville, Florida is demand-led, built only when a U.S. customer or a data residency requirement justifies it, with local capability trained in advance. Further U.S. sites remain on the map only as future possibilities. Two operating principles sit underneath all of this. Connectivity defaults to encrypted business internet, which is inexpensive and portable, with private circuits added only when a customer or a regulator actually requires them. And the systems are designed for lights-out operation, monitored, patched, and supported remotely, with only occasional hands-on work needed at the site itself. The limiting factor on growth is not the number of servers. It is the depth of customer-specific integration and the response commitments that come with paying customers. The final diagram addresses how data is kept consistent. PostgreSQL is the canonical system of record, holding identity, metadata, workflow, permissions, provenance, audit, and search indexes. Large durable artifacts, the documents, audio, video, models, and rendered outputs, live in object storage instead. This figure traces the lifecycle that keeps the two in step. A payload is generated and staged in the database, exported to object storage, then verified by checksum and version and replicated according to policy. Only once that external copy is confirmed authoritative is the temporary database payload purged. The database always knows where the authoritative copy is and can prove its integrity, which is what makes the whole system safe to operate remotely and at a distance. That leaves how Solynth intends to make money, and the model mirrors the three deployment options. A customer can be hosted by Solynth, can run their own on-premises system with Solynth providing the reference design, installation, training, and optional managed operations, or can take a hybrid of the two. Revenue comes from architecture and discovery work, from installation and integration, from managed operations, and where it makes sense from transparent hardware supply, with the higher value always resting in the architecture and support rather than the equipment. On budget, the document carries researched July 2026 planning figures for all three regions. A full three-phase deployment lands broadly in the region of €200,000 equivalent in each territory. Portugal and the United Kingdom come out within a few percent of one another, and the United States shows as the lowest of the three on these preliminary figures. These are budgetary planning values, not binding quotations. And that is the Strawman. It records where the Solynth network stands today, sets a reference baseline for what comes next, and invites exactly the kind of scrutiny and challenge that will turn it into something an investor can act on. Thank you for listening. This has been a Solynth Network production. Copyright 2026, Robert Harvey Curtis. All rights reserved. The Solynth Network concepts, architecture, and original material described here remain the intellectual property of Robert Harvey Curtis. This podcast was developed by Robert Harvey Curtis with the assistance of Anthropic's Claude, and the ideas, editorial decisions, and final content remain the responsibility of the author. You can find more at solynth.net.